and welcome to World Today. I'm your host, Sharmeen Ali. This weekend and today, Britons are going to vote for their new Conservative Party leader, who will also be their next Prime Minister. Now, 160,000 Conservative Party members are going to be voting for this leader, and the main race is right now between Boris Johnson and Jeremy Hunt, and the final results are due to be out on July the 23rd. Today is also the martyrdom anniversary of Burhan Wani, who was an iconic Kashmiri leader amongst the youth. He was only 21 when he was martyred by Indian occupation forces in occupied Kashmir. Burhan Wani was a symbol for the youth, and his martyrdom set off a whole string of protests, and then again a lot of killings amongst Kashmiris in Indian occupied Kashmir. Today is also the death anniversary of Maulana Abdul Sattar Eidi, who was one of the greatest humanitarians in the entire world. He was a great humanitarian of Pakistan, and he set up thousands of homes, shelter homes for orphans, abandoned babies and children, and for women as well. His ambulance services were present nationwide and still are, and he will always be remembered in Pakistan for the work, in humanitarian work that he's done for the poor and downtrodden of the country. And he is also hailed as a hero in Pakistan. Now we will speak about the election of the next United Kingdom Prime Minister, the leader of the Conservative Party, with Hamid Khan in the UK, who's going to be joining us on Skype. Mr. Hamid Khan, thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure, Sharmeen. How are you? Okay?
Good, thank you. Can you tell us a bit about now this process that's going on with the election of the Conservative Party leader after Theresa May has stepped down? The main race is between Boris Johnson and Jeremy Hunt, and it seems that Boris Johnson, everybody seems to think he's the one in the lead. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. All the polls and all the predictions are going in favor of Boris Johnson, who was foreign secretary, ex-foreign secretary, and on top of it, the other contestant is Jeremy Hunt, who was foreign secretary in Theresa May's government. But all the polls and everything is going in favor of Boris Johnson, and there is one reason for it, that he at the time when Theresa May was going to be elected after David Cameron resigned as Prime Minister. At that time, even Boris Johnson was a very strong contender to be the Prime Minister. But because he himself chose not to contest for that election time, and now since Theresa May could not deliver the Brexit according to the wish of the public of the United Kingdom, and then she decided to step down. Yes, there is no, confusion at the moment so far. All the Tory party MPs are getting their ballot papers and everything to do the voting. And as you said, that by the 23rd of July, we will have a very clear picture who's going to be the Prime Minister. But whosoever is going to be, it's going to be very hard for him how to take the Brexit. But it's likely to be the Boris Johnson.
Right.
To be the Boris Johnson.
Okay, so Boris Johnson was one of the main proponents of the Brexit arrangement that Britain's going to be leaving Europe. And he's also said that he's okay with the no-deal Brexit. He's going to go ahead with it in the October deadline. So what do you say about that? What would a no-deal Brexit look like?
To be honest, that's what Theresa May tried in her resolutions, that either if she wants to go for no-deal Brexit. It looks like that will be the last choice for Boris Johnson for going on no-deal Brexit. There could be another choice for the government that go for another referendum, which has been talked about a lot, to revoke the decision of Brexit. But the main concern is they have very short time at the moment. They have a very limited time to decide that whether because the European Union has given them the deadline of October this year. They have to decide, otherwise they will be automatically out of the Europe. And it looks like Boris Johnson is going to try to use his diplomatic skills to get some better deal for Brexit from European Union. And Brussels, he's going to talk to Brussels about a better deal in terms of trade contracts and trade deals, which were very critical for the people of United Kingdom. But in any way, it has to be decided by October this year.
There were other issues also that were deciding factors between the two candidates. There's obviously immigration, and there's tax, and there's spending, health, and social care, and all of that. So, how do the two candidates essentially differ in these issues?
Mainly, I would say the biggest issue which was raised during the campaign for the referendum was immigration and health NHS issue, which they were saying that the so much money from the British citizen is going to be towards the helping towards the other nations of European Union. Yes, that is a big point. But at the moment, Boris Johnson's stand for towards immigration control and towards the trade deal is more acceptable in terms of giving a bit margin for the both European Union citizens and for UK citizens to travel free within their rights and limits. And the main thing is, as far as trade is concerned, England is trying, United Kingdom is trying to get the best possible deal for that in terms of duties and taxes, while European Union is more concerned with that if it is a Brexit, exit means should be complete exit, and they should not be able to have any leverage or any extra benefit than other countries.
Okay, and as far as the other factors being deciding factors in these elections, what about the experience of the two candidates? It seems like Jeremy Hunt is the more experienced one, holding more positions in office. He's been health secretary, and he's also been foreign secretary for some time, and other roles as well. So what about the experience of the two candidates? Is that a deciding factor?
As I told you before, Boris Johnson has served as a mayor of London, and then he's been very strong candidate for at least for last two Tory leaderships. At that time, he was very strong candidate as well. As far as the diplomatic experience is concerned, as far as international relation experience is concerned, yes, you are right. Jeremy Hunt has better experience, but Jeremy Hunt is not that much, I should say, popular in within their MPs. Jeremy Hunt is not that popular in within the Tory party as compared to Boris Johnson. Especially his since you must have seen that at one time when
Can
President
you please? Okay. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Carry on. Sorry.
yeah,
Carry on, please.
yeah. When President Trump was visiting United Kingdom, and he also mentioned that he can see that the Boris Johnson will be maybe a better choice. Although it was the people of United Kingdom didn't like his interference in our politics because it's a free nation. We don't want anybody to even argument about it. But it's very obvious that Boris Johnson has more international recognition at the moment in terms of European Union, in terms of America, in terms of other countries. So in that aspect, Boris Johnson has stronger, I should say, position as compared to Jeremy Hunt, who's contending with him. As you know, Pakistani contender was there as well, but he couldn't come to the last final two. So these final two, Jeremy Hunt and Boris Johnson, they both are very well experienced, I should say. There may be a little bit difference of experience, but as far as the serving for the party is concerned, they both have served almost equally.
Okay, and how about the impression of Boris Johnson as regards to his stance on Muslims? Can you please tell us a bit about that? He's seen as a bit of an Islamophobe in many, amongst many people. So, what is his approach towards the Muslims in the UK and otherwise?
Yeah, that's very right. That was one of the negative aspect for him, and that's why most of the Muslim MPs from Tory party, they were not initially with him at all. They were rather preferring Sajid Hussain and other contenders. But the only thing is, yes, Boris Johnson's been controversial for his statements, which was not acceptable for any community, especially in UK. if you are heading a party or if you are going to be the prime minister, you must be very careful what you're saying about it. And he has given some sort of explanations, and he has said in few occasions that it's not, like he's gonna treat and he's gonna address equally to the all religion and race and the people of United Kingdom. And as far as his Islamophobia is concerned, yes, it is there, and that is not, or I should say, that is not going in his favor at all, because in a diverse society like United Kingdom, people more accept the person who is more diverse in terms of religion and who is not showing his any concern with any religion, where there is a society is based on equality.
Okay, and this election is not exactly a general election per se. It's so 2.2% of the electorate is going to choose the next prime minister, which is the Conservative Party membership. So how does this system work? I mean, the people aren't exactly choosing their next prime minister.
Exactly. That's a very important thing you have raised. Actually, that's what Jeremy Corbyn, the opposition leader, the shadow prime minister, is saying for the last 1 year, that this is a time when the government, the Tory party should go, even Theresa May should have gone for the re-election rather than going for a re-election of only a prime minister, because electing the prime minister is only within the party. They will change their party head and it will be the prime minister. And to be fair, if Boris Johnson could not deliver anything, he will have no choice left but to go for public opinion and public voting for the next election. And it was very highly, it was very close that people were expecting that Theresa May is going to call for the elections rather than stepping down and bringing another head of the party. And it looks like if Boris Johnson could not handle the things in any way, in terms of the deal for Brexit or in terms of coming out of European Union, they will have to go for the re-election. And yes, there is no doubt that Labour is very much strong and very much hopeful that if they are called for re-elections, they will have much better seats and much better performance than their previous elections. And they might be, and Jeremy Corbyn was quite confident that he might be the next prime minister. So that's why he wanted Theresa May to call for the election. But because within the constitution of United Kingdom, she has the right to decide whether she should go for the re-election or she should go for only the changing the party leadership. So it's happening within the British Constitution, and the Parliament is acting upon their rights.
Thank you so much, Hamid Khan from the UK, from joining us. We're now going to be discussing about the death anniversary of Burhan Wani, who was an iconic Kashmiri leader, especially amongst the youth. And he has sort of started this new life into the Kashmiri freedom struggle. We're going to be speaking about this with our guest, Dr. Waleed Rasool, who's an expert on Kashmir affairs, and we're also going to be talking to Raja Kesar, who's an international affairs expert. Thank you both for being with us today. I'd like to ask you to begin with that Burhan Wani was seen as a very iconic leader in this Kashmiri struggle, and when he passed away, when he was martyred by Indian occupation forces in Kashmir, it set off a wave of protests amongst the citizens over there, and then that also resulted in many deaths. So how has this breathed new life into the Kashmiri struggle?
Well, thank you. Burhan Wani is a very iconic figure, and his martyrdom became a very momentous development, given a fact because he is the indigenous face of the insurgency which is taking place in Kashmir. Before this, India had always been constantly alleging that it is Pakistan-sponsored or Pakistan-orchestrated movement which is taking place in Jammu and Kashmir. Burhan Wani was actually the vernacular face, the indigenous face of this movement over there in Kashmir, and the way he has led it, and it has led to the reshaping of and redefinition of the contours of the insurgency movement in Jammu and Kashmir, and the way this insurgency movement has gained momentum and the way it has become robust after the martyrdom of Burhan Wani, it is unprecedented, because you see after that this freedom struggle, it has taken a new fold. It has been unleashed into a new kind of a struggle which was perhaps lying in smolders previously, and the embers of discontent were albeit there. But the way this insurgency movement has been unleashed afterwards, his martyrdom, it is something which has become a flashpoint everywhere in the world, and the way world has taken the notice of the things with the Amnesty International reports, and the way Human Rights Watch has issued its report on Kashmir, and the way international media outlets has started projecting about the blatant human rights violations in Kashmir afterwards. It is something which owes itself to the martyrdom of Burhan Wani.
Right.
And at the same time, a young, a very handsome and a very cosmetic figure, Burhan Wani, who has attracted a lot of people who had embarked upon to the trajectory of rebellion afterwards. It is something which is an incessant and the ongoing legacy of Burhan Wani. You see after that Dr. Rafi Bhatt, Manan Wani, and many others likes of Burhan who have joined and who have jumped onto this very notion and this very notion of resistance. So I personally believe that indeed Burhan Wani's martyrdom, it is one of those very significant developments which has taken place in past 1 decade in Kashmir, and the way it has led to a kind of mayhem within Kashmir, and the way this Bharatiya Janata Party led government in New Delhi had to resort to the things by imposing a kind of a persistent siege within the Jammu and Kashmir. It is again unprecedented, and we hope and pray that the way he has led and the way he has guided this indigenous resistance movement, it might end up with something securing good for Kashmiris.
Right. Dr. Waleed Rasool, I'd like to ask you that this Burhan Wani came up as a leader only at the age of 15. He led that movement for 6 years. He was very, very young, 16. And that was the result of him being beaten up, severely beaten by Indian troops, with his brother who was also later killed. Now, this shows that this is an indigenous, homegrown movement of the freedom struggle in Kashmir. The Kashmiri Indian authorities can't blame Pakistan anymore for what's happening over there. So what does this say about what is happening in Kashmir and the Kashmiri youth and the public there wanting their freedom, and how the boiling point to which it's come to right now?
Actually, it has been remained modus operandi of India to tag and dub the genuine aspirations of the people, and they have a set agenda. They create a narrative and they use media against the people. Now, in post Burhan Wani, I wrote an research paper on this subject. It was an interplay of social media and sentiment, which gave a new phenomena. I named it Burhanization.
Okay.
And what is a Burhanization? It is very interesting. Burhanization of the movement is, number one, the tag and dub of India has been neutralized. It has 3 effects. One is domestic. People did not accept the narrative of India that anybody who is struggling for freedom is a terrorist. It has not been accepted neither by local people nor internationally. It means there is a dent in that agenda setting which was funded by Government of India, and they have invested huge amount of money to tag the genuine aspirations which what they desire, that they should not give it the name of the freedom fighter. That has been neutralized. It was one big phenomena. Number 2, indigenous character of the movement has been highlighted, because an innocent boy who was 16 years old was not accepted by any quarter that he can be anything else except his aspirations for the freedom. It created a big momentum, and that momentum brought millions of the people on the streets. And that was the real power, what people think and what they want. Number 3, that was it possible that one man can be, one can expect that any state is helping any one man, he is struggling for the resistance, but it is not possible that you can quote that Indian Express itself and the other big media houses who quoted more than million people were on the streets in post-Burhan. And number 3 factors: resistance, resilience, and fear factor. After Burhan Wani, there was no fear. There was a fearlessness in among youth who are struggling for the rights of the nation. And third, the resilience factor. They are now more resilient as compared to the previous generation. And now you have to understand, this was an 5th generation of the Kashmir who are in the struggle. And we say the generation is one. If a person gives birth to a child, it is called one generation. It has different interpretation, but mostly 20 to 25 years. Now the Burhan Wani was the 5th generation who have been consumed in the freedom struggle. And number 5th one important
so
factor.
5 of their generations have not seen peace or the basic rights that people should be enjoying.
Yeah, that is an important factor. It highlighted, it triggered the real sentiment of the people, and it has been accepted by the majority internationally even. That is an innocent boy who has been bruised, who has suffered through a cycle of torture, and that was not tolerable, and that give an event, and which we called the catharsis. That was some sort of the catharsis. But after Burhan's movement, now this movement, Kashmir movement, has been transferred in the 5th generation totally and entirely.
Okay.
This is an important factor of this movement.
It is. Now the Kashmir movement, as it goes forward, you still see extreme atrocities by the Indian government, and literally Kashmiris are suffering a lot. So you're seeing these atrocities in the form of pellet guns used, which was a huge issue. A lot of people, it didn't matter whether they were adults or children, were being shot at with pellet guns. There are curfews, there's killing of innocent civilians, then there's rape of women going on. Children are not spared. 10-year-old boys, pregnant women, an 8-year-old girl was abducted, raped and killed. There are mob assaults in India against Kashmiris, and here you're destroying of houses, martyring of youth, and here you're seeing a 500,000 army, 500,000 soldiers are deployed for unarmed citizens. So, Dr. Raja Kesar, I would like to ask you that where do we see this heading? Because this has been happening, like we just talked about, 5 generations. It's been 5 generations. Where is the United Nations in this right now? Okay, they've acknowledged that there is brutality in Kashmir, but what next? What steps can be taken to put an end to the suffering of the Kashmiri people?
Well, it's a very pertinent question, and the simplest answer to this question is that the freedom movements and the resistance movements, they do take a long course of time. At times, it spans over centuries. It's not something, neither these movements can be cultivated overnight, and neither can they be eradicated overnight.
Yes.
It takes a lot of time. I mean, this Algerian independence movement started in 1830s and ended somewhere in 1960s. So this is something where Kashmiris, they have a very firm resolve, and they have unflinching and unrelenting stance that they are not going to back out on this thing. When it comes to atrocities, indeed it is something which is horrendous, which is happening across the Kashmir. It is the first instance in the recorded history of the humankind when a mass blinding is taking place. There had been many wars, there had been world wars, there had been holocausts, there had been anything, but there had been no mass blinding as it is taking place in Kashmir apparently. Apart from this, I totally agree to my fellow colleague when he says that, the kids which are right now over there at this generation, which is right there into the battleground right now. These, I always term them as the children of chaos, because they have never seen the peace and the serenity within the valley.
Yeah.
They have never seen, because they have been born in the post-insurgency phase of 1989. They had seen arsons, they had seen blood pogroms, they had seen people being humiliated, they had been witness to the outright human rights violations, blatant human rights violations, firearms, pellet guns,
And
and all
Burhan
these
Wani
things.
was not from your typical militant kind of background. He's from an upper middle
And-
class family,
and
because he's seen all
and
of this.
Sharmeen,
that's what
if you just see the guy who was considered as to be the architect of this Pulwama attack, Adil Dar, he too was the one who was being mishandled at the hands of Indian forces,
Exactly.
and he was on to revenge. All of these things, they demonstrate, they vindicate, and they substantiate one thing, that Kashmiris, they have decided, this resistance movements have their own niceties, they have their own intricacies. You cannot understand, at times they get slow, at times they take up the momentum, at times they go very on a brisk pace, and at times they somewhere rest in smolder. So but the fact of the matter is that if Kashmiris had been able to sustain this movement for last 7 decades, it is almost 1 century, quarter to century, it's been 3/4 in fact to century had been passed, and this resistance movement is alive. It in itself demonstrates that Kashmiris, as I said, that they have an unrelenting resolve, that they are not going to accept themselves as the part of the Indian Union in one way or another. And at the same time, if you see this even indigenous movement, non-cooperative movement, even people who had been into the civil services, who had been into jobs, who had competed for different state institutions, they are giving up their jobs. Very recently, I'm forgetting the name, but someone who had topped the Indian administrative services exams had signed off from the position over all this, what is happening in the valley. So all of these things cumulatively, they reflect to a fact that Kashmiris, they are Kashmiris, they are not Indians. There can be multiple variants, there can be multiple interpretations to who is supporting, why is supporting, what are the factors, indigenous factors, exogenous factors. But one thing that remains at the helm of the affairs, and that is that Kashmiri resistance movement is genuine. Kashmiris, they proudly hold and behold an identity. They are the adherent to a resistance movement for past 7 decades, and they are not ready to give up on that. This is the bottom line, and Indians, they too are realizing this fact, but unfortunately the way India has put a kind of a iron curtain with Kashmir and the rest of the world, and the way it has not been able to reach out to the rest of the world, and I think there Pakistan has to play its proactive role. Pakistan needs to give a space to the indigenous voices. Pakistan had been indeed doing appreciable measures highlighting this thing internationally, but I think now it is the time when they need to give opportunity to the native leadership and the native Kashmiris to highlight this thing internationally, to brand this thing internationally,
Absolutely.
to take it to the international forums and forums, and to give a message to the rest of the world, because when the victims would speak for themselves, then that would make the real sense.
Yes, DGISPR tweeted, "Nothing comes without commitment, dedication and sacrifices. Heroes do it at the cost of their today for better tomorrow of the next generations," about Burhan Wani. So, Dr. Waleed Rasool, what can we expect a peaceful resolution through dialogue for the Kashmiris and the Kashmir issue, because they've suffered quite a long time, and what are the prospects of having a peaceful resolution through dialogue?
I think that it is not first time in the history that any suppressed had struggled against any aggressive power. Pakistan or India collectively itself, they were struggling for the right, for the freedom against the colonial rule, and they got it. Number one, this is an central idea of the whole, the crux of the whole things. And when we people struggle, actually Burhan Wani is I belong to the same district where Burhan Wani was martyred. In Tral, it was a district Pulwama of
Right.
the Indian occupied Kashmir.
Okay.
When you have a sentiment and you are struggling for a just cause, and you have in mind that I have to pay the cost, and that we are paying. That is a huge cost for the right to self-determination. Number one. Number two, for anybody, intellectual or a media person, was expecting that Taliban will be on the table and they will discuss the Afghan affairs in the Murray. It was not expected just 4 or 5 years before. Now it is on the table, and you are discussing, and Pakistan is hosting Taliban,
Yes,
including
absolutely.
America. And you
So
might,
what are the
you
prospects
can
that
go,
this might happen with
you can
Kashmir?
go to the BBC story. They say that Americans are ready to pay for them, that when they are going to any meeting, they need some money and they are going to pay them. So these are the realities, ground realities. But actually, as my colleague told already, that there is an apathy definitely when you are discussing any state matter internationally. We are struggling against a naked imperialistic state who is grooming economically, and the international community have some sort of economic interests with India, and they are keeping human rights at one. But still, there is an oxygen from human rights organizations. They are taking what they can do at their own.
But
They
sir,
are
in
taking
the-
notices of small notices, I may say the baby steps they are taking
Then
to
when,
highlight.
when there's a sort of a tense situation between India and Pakistan, then they take note as well. Like after the Pulwama attacks, there was a very tense situation and everybody was talking about it. But the main question that came in the forefront was that how can there be peace between the two countries when one party refuses to come to the table and talk about the major issue, which is
Actually,
Kashmir.
until and unless the bilateral talks has been halted in 2014, and that had not been resumed so far. Number one. Number two, until and unless there is not some sort of external help, or you may say a gentle nudge from outside,
Yes.
India may not come on the table. But table is actually, we have to decide whatsoever, we have to decide it on the table. And number four important factor is that regional dynamics has been now changed. You see that Russia, China, America, and I think there is some sort of good news also. Imran Khan is going to meet with Trump in
Yes.
20th. Dates has been all decided, and after that he is going to Russia also. It means that things are not so easy for the India who is trying to create and hustle and bustle in international forums against India, because against Pakistan, because Pakistan is a legal party to dispute. We have to be, because if Pakistan is doing some sort of they are doing a lot, but as far as the Kashmir is concerned, they are concerned diplomatically, but as a state, because in international affairs, state is a unit of analysis. We are non-state. We have no directly access in any international forum. It is Pakistan who is having direct. I think I was lastly talking to our Washington DC Dr. Fai. He was also saying same, that Imran Khan shall personally, just for 1 minute, tell Mr. Trump that he should personally take some interest in resolving the Kashmir issue.
And Donald Trump did say that at one point, that he would
no,
he would
in
mind
personal
taking-
talks with the Trump. It is very
Right.
important with the Trump.
Yes,
in personal.
I'd like to add to
Dr. Raja,
I'd like to add to this conversation. Apparently, unfortunately and ironically, this Kashmir dispute is ending nowhere in the near sight. It is likely to persist because the way Indian's economy and India's economic clout is growing within the region and internationally, the Kashmir military enterprise does not come as a big cost to them. They can afford that in the first place. Secondly, this Kashmir dispute has not been able to distract the international community's, this consumerist resolve within India. They have their capitalist interests. And this is the dichotomy of international politics, that principles come later and politics comes first.
But no doubt this is a point, it's an embarrassing point for
Yeah,
India.
as I
because
said,
no one can doubt
it is
that you have
dichotomous.
500,000 soldiers in a region with
It is
unarmed
dichotomy.
civilians.
It is dichotomy of international politics. It is paradox, and which we can lament, and but we can't do anything. The third important thing is that Kashmir dispute has to be resolved through an external mediation. It has to come because it is an unfinished agenda of partition. British, they will have to come forward to resolve this thing. And Americans, when Obama was running for the presidential campaign back in 2008, he promised to appoint a delegate on Kashmir. Perhaps this is the time, and I think this is a very crucial time when America needs Pakistan's proactive role in Afghan peace process. Pakistan should make it conditional for America to play their role in Kashmir dispute. And it should be reciprocal. If America should, because Americans, they are into a very cordial and good relation with New Delhi. They can right now set a tune over which New Delhi can actually have to respond, because Pakistan is constantly trying to engage India, but it is falling onto the deaf ears.
Third party mediation is definitely needed. Thank you so much, Dr. Raja Kaisar and Dr. Waleed Rasool. Thank you for joining us today on World Today. Very interesting and very, very helpful insights for us. Viewers, today the nation also remembers Dr. Abdul Sattar Eidi on his 3rd death anniversary. Maulana Eidi was remembered for his philanthropic work across Pakistan. His work as a philanthropist is renowned all across the world, not just in Pakistan. Maulana Eidi established Pakistan's biggest foundation by his name, and he was hailed by the Huffington Post as the world's greatest humanitarian. He helped 50,000 orphans and 20,000 abandoned infants, and he had the largest chain of shelters across the country. 330 centers were run by the Eidi Foundation. And his ambulance service had over 600 vehicles, and it's known to be the world's largest ambulance service, which is still running. All of these centers and all of these ambulance services are still functioning in the country. Maulana Eidi, his work will carry on for generations. The work that he's done towards helping women, women's shelters, orphans, abandoned children left at hospitals will always be remembered. On the 8th of July 2016, Maulana Eidi's kidneys failed, and due to that he passed away. But he will always be remembered by Pakistan as a great philanthropist and a national hero. Maulana Eidi was known for establishing Pakistan's largest foundation by his own name, the Eidi Foundation, and he spent his entire lifetime serving the people in Maulana Eidi spent his lifetime in helping the poor and downtrodden people and orphans and the children and the abandoned children in shelters. He gave his entire lifetime, it was his lifetime's work. Him and his wife Bilkis Eidi worked a lot towards these people, and the nation remembers him today. Now we're going to speak about the stock market situation in the country with Salman Naqvi. Salman Naqvi, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Can you please tell us how the markets did today?
Today markets actually lot of uncertainty prevailing right now on economic front as well as on political front. Because of this uncertainty regarding taxation, regarding macroeconomic indicators, regarding exchange rate, and as well as regarding the interest rates. In such type of situations, usually a huge number of rumors prevail in the market and all business front, which is impacting stock market very badly for last at least 3-4 sessions especially. And right now market is trading around 33,700, and it has broken the resistance level of 33,800. It means it could further decline. So the main reason behind all these decline trend is uncertainty on economic front.
So usually when the market is taking a downturn, there are certain stocks that are good to invest in which are lower than they usually are valued. So are there any such stocks in the market right now that investors would be advised to maybe go for a certain sector in the market?
Definitely, I think it's my experience. This is the right time to enter in the market for long run investment, especially those sectors which are not affected this by this budget, or they are not impacting because of these heavy taxation, like exploration and production sector, E&P sector, which consists OGDC, PPL, and Pakistan oil field, and as well as chemical sector, banking sector. I think these are the most preferable sectors for the investors.
Thank you
And
so
right
much,
now,
Salman Naqvi, for joining us today on PTV World and telling us the latest about the stock market situation. Thank you for joining us today on World Today. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.